We have Milind Deora, Shiv Sena MP, joining us for more on this. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Now, Shiv Sena workers have ransacked the site of the show where stand-up comedian Kunal Kamra had mocked the Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister. He hadn't mentioned his name. This whole idea of, vandalizing the property, complaints have been filed at the Khar police station. If you could, highlight for us the complaints against the comedian.
Firstly, let me say this, that comedy is an integral part of any society, and I have the greatest respect for genuine comedians, not for people who are elitists and classists, who disguise themselves as comedians. In fact, Balasaheb Thackeray was a famous cartoonist in his own right, besides being a political activist. Firstly, there are a few aspects to this issue. Number one, the fact that the UBT party is facing very serious legal troubles right now. In the backdrop of those legal troubles, using somebody who, as I said, moonlights as a comedian, but is actually a political activist, to go out and create this controversy is very clear what is trying to be done and attempted, which is to essentially distract people's attention away from the legal hurdles that the UBT party is facing right now in the Bombay High Court. Secondly, in my opinion, politically speaking, this idea of protecting entitled monarchs who run political parties like family-run enterprises and going after people who are self-made, have come from nothing, are first-generational political activists, is a classic example of being an elitist and supporting entitled monarchists. And this is something which, as I said, politically, electorally, the country has rejected time and time again. Today, I can say very confidently, I'm very proud that I think it's a manifestation of the truest democratic traditions that a man who was driving an auto rickshaw can rise up to become the chief minister of the country's second largest state and is today the deputy chief minister. Today, just like the Prime Minister was mocked, in the same way the Deputy Chief Minister is being mocked. Prime Minister also, a man who came from humble backgrounds, who was selling tea on a railway platform. He was mocked for that. And today he's risen to be the Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy.
Milind Deora, my colleague Radhika Ramaswamy also joining us, and she also has a question for you. Radhika, go ahead.
Mr. Deora, of course, we are talking about freedom of speech and expression. This has to be taken as a joke, is the argument on the other side. But at the same time, the complaint by Rahul Kanal speaks about how this is a conspiracy hatched with the help of Aditya Thackeray, with the help of Rahul Gandhi. He's a hired comedian. Do you really believe that there is opposition hand as far as what Kunal Kamra said?
Well, it obviously appears as if as I said, these people are they comedians? Or are they political activists disguised as comedians? And why are they perpetuating an idea that entitled monarchists who preach meritocracy and democracy, but in reality and in practice are actually implementing a monarchical system? There's obviously something beyond that. And we're one of the only countries in the world. We claim to be the largest democracy. We talk about the constitution. We're one of the only countries in the world where 90 to 95% of political parties are family-owned, family-run, family-operated. And so there's obviously, this is an attempt at bailing out parties like them. A, taking away attention from a case that the UBT is facing. And B, at perpetuating the fact that entitled monarchists are better than self-made leaders. This is the same thing that happened with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This is the same thing that's happening here, where you want to bring down first-generational hard-working leaders in view of people who've done nothing for society, but have just basically inherited a political party. And so there's a very clear attempt. I mean, it's absolutely clear in my opinion.
I also wanted to ask you, of course, you're calling them entitled monarchists, but you know, is vandalism or violence the way to deal with these things? We know that an FIR has been registered at least against 20 Sena workers for vandalizing that particular place. Of course, this was a joke which was not taken well. Perhaps it may have crossed the limit. I'm not entirely certain. There are debates surrounding it. But is vandalism, violence really the way to deal with it?
I know what Mr. Shinde's views are on this matter, and I know that the law will take its own course. This is something that happened late at night. I also woke up to hear about the news. And my response to those who are criticizing what has happened is that, you know, what, for example, just let me remind you of what was happening during the MVA government when Mr. Uddhav Thackeray was Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Look what happened to a Kangana Ranaut. She made a statement, her home was demolished. Look what happened to people in your own profession who made a few statements, asked a few questions. What happened to their office? Look what happened to a young boy called Sameer Thakkar. He simply called Aditya Thackeray, named him a bird, and for that he was arrested for 23 days. So they have no right to talk about, lecture anyone on democratic values, law of the land, you know, these kinds of things. They have intimidated, harassed people. That's not what happened here. You will hear Mr. Shinde's statements in the next few hours, and you will know what his stand on this matter is very clearly.
Well, you know, joining the row, senior Shiv Sena leader Sanjay Nirupam has said that we'll thrash Kunal Kamra. And, you know, while other leaders from your party have warned that he would be chased by Sena workers throughout the country, you'll be forced to flee India. You know, what are your views on such strong reactions coming into, you know, he is known to be a comedian. You might describe him as a contract comedian. That is what your party is saying. But, you know, he is a comedian. These conversations and these performances usually, you know, they do target famous people, and this is supposed to be taken with a pinch of salt. How is such a reaction, especially with, you know, Aditya Thackeray also taking to social media, questioning the law and order situation in the state? Is, you know, taking law into your own hands the only solution?
Can I speak?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. No, Aditya Thackeray should answer what his views are on what happened to a young man called Sameer Thakkar. He should answer what his party did to a media studio, a news media studio, which, by the way, I'm sure you would identify with and express solidarity with, and what they did to an actress called Kangana Ranaut. Let him comment on those things first. After that, I'm happy to respond to him.
Right, Milind Deora, but of course, you know, this is something which is very concerning in regard to freedom of speech when it comes to comedians. Of course, you know, there is a limit, but he didn't even name Eknath Shinde. He referred to him as a traitor. There was a song that was modified from a film, but there has been a huge backlash, you know, from the Shiv Sena. Well, this is something that, you know, is, would you say this is going, you know, taking the matters very seriously?
Well, the matter I think, as I said, it is a serious matter where you have people moonlighting as comedians, but in reality are political activists who are perpetuating a certain ideology that protects entitled monarchs and tries to poke fun at people who are rags to riches. Right. And that's an ideological division people have, and they're entitled to that view. People are entitled to fight for a view that, in the truest form of democratic tradition, it's people who come from nothing that should rise to the top. And that's how democracies, mind you, around the world work. There's no democracy in the world where 95% of political parties are hijacked and captured by political families.
Right. Thank you so much, Milind Deora, for speaking with us here on NDTV.